Happy news. The United States government shutdown has ended. It has been the longest one in recorded history. Funny thing, I think both the longest and the second longest have been under the Trump administration, but he signed the funding bill to end the longest US government shutdown. So I guess that's some kind of victory, at least some sort of alleviation of some of the hardships that are being experienced by many. But something odd is that if you go to the government shutdown clock, the clock is actually still running. So I don't know if the people who are in charge of this haven't got around to shutting this down yet, or maybe they've on purpose left this on just to remind you that the Democrats have shut down the government from the point of view of the White House, that is, and all that, work they've done on the impact of the government. But because make no mistake, even though the government is opened back up now, the effects are still lingering. So it's going to take a while before, well, for instance, the backlog of all the work that should have been done this whole time is resolved, and etc., etc. So shout out to the United States. You guys have endured some of the worst politics around the world, but there seems to be some sort of resolution in sight. Unfortunately, this has led to the opposite of what we thought, or, some people actually predicted this. The market sold off on the opening of the government because apparently this is what happened. All of the bad news that we should have been exposed to this whole time were shielded away because we weren't getting all that data from the government employees that are supposed to provide the data. And as such, no news has been good news in the stock market. And a lot of the stocks were doing all-time highs and all kinds of pumps while the shutdown was ongoing. And now that the shutdown is finished, completed, despite what this says, apparently they're expecting an avalanche of terrible news. And some of it has already started to land. Some bad news with Tesla, with, what's the other one? With Meta. Mark Zuckerberg's old Facebook company, whatever it's called now, not doing very well. And these are heavy hitters in the industry. Microsoft is down as well, apparently. Only Apple is doing well. I haven't had a look, but I'm willing to bet the military industrial complex type companies are doing pretty well too. All the others are doing pretty badly. Bitcoin down dramatically. Let me just have a look at this price here. Bitcoin down dramatically, breaking that $100,000 threshold, which is kind of a psychological threshold. The market cap is down to 3.34 trillion. That's a terrible low. We're approaching extreme fear on the fear and greed index. I don't even really understand why this is happening, to be honest. I know that the big guys like Warren Buffett have been warning us about an imminent crash, but I don't think that today is any worse than yesterday or the day before. I think this is just a crazy reaction from the stock market, from Wall Street, etc., to some of the terrible news that's dropping vis-a-vis jobs reports and stuff like that, right? Or the expectation of terrible news. And some of these guys are exiting early. Bunch of sell-offs, bunch of companies dumping shares, bunch of executives and founder members of big companies dumping shares and running. A bit of bad news from the UK, like I reported yesterday, vis-a-vis the government's plan to retain millionaires in the country. So a lot going on in macro. People are a little bit scared. Having said that, check this out. XRP is the only, well, not the only, but the best performing top 10 token at the moment. I don't know how Tron keeps performing well. It's one of those tokens I just don't like. And, I don't like Tron just because of the weird environment. And I don't like the founder because he's always up to dodgy stuff. And because I've had some bad experiences with him buying up a project that I was involved in. So not a big fan of Justin Sun, but his project, man, I've got to hand it to him. It's stayed resilient. It stayed top 10. A lot of his rivals are falling, but he's here. So shout out, I give him his flowers. Shout out to Justin Sun and the Tron ecosystem. I assume he still has something to do with it. He might have just jumped ship. Maybe that's why they're doing so well. but it is what it is. XRP itself, you know, just moving sideways compared to the others. I mean, the others have crashed pretty badly, but XRP, even though down from, you know, some earlier highs, but it's still, you know, not doing too badly at $2.31, considering the macro environment we're sitting in, approaching extreme fear with Bitcoin underneath 100,000. XRP $2.31 actually isn't that bad at all. Now, obviously, one of the things that's lifting XRP at the moment is, of course, the Nasdaq approval or launch or whatever of the XRP ETF in the US market, which sets a precedent for the rest to come flowing in. So, you know, they welcome the first. I'm not sure why there's an Indian flag in the background there, but a new chapter unfolds for cryptocurrency in the US with the introduction of the Canary XRP exchange traded fund on the Nasdaq. This notable launch represents the first of its kind, focusing solely on spot XRP. As of Thursday, investors can access the fund, classified under the ticker XRPC, providing a fresh avenue for diversification. I'll leave a link to this article. There are many articles now talking about Nasdaq, XRP, ETF, blah, blah, blah. Basically, just type in Nasdaq XRP ETF or just XRP ETF, and you will be confronted by thousands of articles talking about this. So it's deep in people's psyche, and it is right up there in on the press, right? There's a lot of PR, a lot of press about this. So it's clearly something that a lot of people have been expecting, especially in the financial market. So expect to see some inflows kick off in the next few days. There's been speculation that BlackRock is waiting to see how the XRP ETF does first before basically going in and setting one up themselves. But, you know, this doesn't really need BlackRock, actually. There are inflows that are pent up to go into any one of these other ones that are being set up. So when the others have been approved as well, we're going to see some momentum on that aspect, and we're going to see some inflows coming in to the XRP ledger. Now, we know what it did for Bitcoin. It brought Bitcoin to all-time highs. In fact, because of the ETFs, I believe the Bitcoin has outperformed a lot of the other tokens in terms of being the one that has vastly outperformed the previous all-time highs and has stayed above it this whole time. Not even Ethereum has done anything like that, even though it has an ETF that's been already approved. It basically is just sitting there going size, not really doing much. Solana, kind of a dud. And what is the other one? Litecoin, even worse, right? Obviously, there are some inflows, but none of those inflows have been able to basically capture the kind of FOMO that is required to pump such a token in this macro environment. I think XRP is the one to do it. So not financial advisory and research. I'm looking forward to a great week next week. We're moving into now. Weekends are usually low traffic, even though crypto trades 24/7. For sure, the Nasdaq is going to be closed. So Monday, I'm expecting to see some inflows then. And going forward, we might end up with that bullish November that we've been waiting for. I will see you in the next piece.